Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming in to the Shift Left Experience. And as you all know, Shift Left Experience, we conduct webinars, we conduct podcasts on the platform to kind of bring in industry experts, industry leaders, to kind of give you an insight of what the corporate world looks like, what is happening in the corporate world, what are the new trends that are driving the corporate world. And we have these conversations on various platforms, in classroom sessions, on YouTube videos, on blogs, on social media. But there is nothing like it having an expert right in front of us, agreeing to interact with us and throwing some lights. And today in the Shift Left Experience, we have a very senior industry leader. I know he would not want to be termed with a lot of fancy terms. He's a transformation leader, I would say, with a huge global experience in managing complex and critical platforms in the fintech space, in the payment space, in lending, travel, and FMCG. So a broad range of industries and organizations on his profile. And he has been part of the technology team at companies like global companies like American Express, the Westpac Bank, the Lloyds Banking Group, Price Waterhouse, and Woolworths in Australia. And of course, he moved into India in 2015 with one of India's largest platforms in the Geo platforms, where he had been part of the technology team and he had taken up the leadership role at Geo platforms. And then later on from Geo, he moved on to Edelweiss Financial Services, and then he was part of the technology transformation for financial systems and software as well. So you can see the breadth and the depth of the experience. And he started his career working on multi-threaded single processing algorithms for image and speech recognition. The best thing I like about Rukesh is that he keeps it very simple. And I had the great opportunity of working with him at Geo. And even during interacting with him, he always, I used to go with complex flows and complex processes. But he said that how to keep it simple. He believes that technology should be simple, non-invasive. It should blend in easily with everyone's life. If you're taking an effort to use technology, that means the technology design is not good. And
Absolutely.
Rukesh comes from that world. And I really appreciate that because if you look at platforms today, why are we so engaged in WhatsApp? Because it's very simple. And there are multiple players who try to emulate the success of WhatsApp, but they could not, simply because they could not replicate the simplicity of WhatsApp. It's not about giving the functionality. They could not replicate the simplicity, is what I feel. And Rukesh comes from that world. He comes from that mindset, and he also dwells on as a leadership coach, and he strongly believes that any strategy can be driven by culture. To attain the agility, to be flexible in today's VUCA world. We'll come on to that topic as well. So Rukesh is a self-transforming thinker who believes that there is no bar ach- in achieving anything in life. And as we go on with this session, we would see the various facets of Rukesh, not only as an industry leader, but different things that he does. He's a marathoner. He goes on insane amount of, he does insane marathons on the bike, and stuff like that, which he will share definitely. So welcome, Rukesh. It's great to have you over here.
You give me more credit than I deserve, but no, I absolutely appreciate. Um, Absolutely. Hmm. Hmm.
Great. So just to give some behind the scenes perspective to all our listeners, Rukesh and I just caught up on a coffee a few days ago, and we just started talking about things, and we got into conversation which got into areas, and it felt as if we were doing a live podcast over there itself. We touched upon so many topics during the conversation, but it's less like we can just start off from there, But for the others, of course,
Yes.
I don't want them to be confused or think, what is happening or what are these guys talking about. So we have request today to speak about what are the essential skills in a world of 2024 that are most important when a leader looks to hire in an organization, which are important to the organizational values, which are important to the company values, the business values, the ethical values. Uh, I want to ask Ukesh on what is the impact, AI, there's so much of noise around artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, especially after COVID 2019. So I want him to touch upon how that is happening in the corporate world. How is it impacting lives? Uh, and what are the essential skills that you look into how COVID AI is impacting lives? What kind of impact it will have in the future? What kind of skills should people develop in this fast changing world, which is completely driven by technology, where technology is the bedrock of everything that is happening around us, not just in our work life, but also in our personal life. So I want him to touch upon those aspects, and we get started. So, Rukesh, anything that you want to say before we get started?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, let's jump straight in. I mean, you've spoken a lot about what I do and stuff, so good background, but I don't think I deserve all that credit. But let's keep it simple. But this should be really enjoyable. So, in terms of skills, I think it has to be more dynamic, meaning it's just a means towards an end, and therefore you're always learning, unlearning, relearning, right? And we talked about that, right? So like if you're starting off, and I see a lot of students here, so if you're, for example, starting off, then you're learning programming languages, but those languages are just means to accomplishing some end. So therefore it's about learning types of programming languages. So for example, procedural, object, functional programming languages. It's learning the ability to apply which language at the right time. Right. So that's the skill, I believe, is what needs to be learned. And see, anybody can learn a programming language. You spend few days, few hours, few weeks, few months, and you can learn a new programming language. So that should be easy. But ability to learn that is very important, right? And when it comes to senior leadership, I think from a skills perspective, and we'll talk about AI in a bit, but I think from a skills perspective, we were talking about this, Roshan, the other day, and I've kind of developed another model now. So, we talk about intelligent quotient, IQ, and we talk about EQ, which is the emotional quotient. And then I was telling you about how in my hiring, always look at adaptable quotient, how adaptable you are. Can you change? Because, we're talking about a world that's moving really fast, right? So how quickly can you change from what you are doing, and if something disrupts, can you quickly adapt to something different, right? But then, as we were talking about the AI, I kind of now started believing that we also need the moral quotient, right? And we spoke about that in terms of AI has ability to go both ways. It can go in dark places. It can go in, not so dark places, and it can actually do something good for the humanity. But having that moral compass to be able to, not get it towards the dark places, right? Like to stop. And that's what I'm kind of feeling. But look, I feel AI per se is a hype cycle. And to me, it is still a hype. There are a few areas which are definitely, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's like, it's definitely a game changer. Like, what we have seen with generative AI and what, ChatGPT has done, it's definitely a game changer. But, it's also just spilling out stuff that it has learned, right? So, I mean, like how New York Times New York Journal actually just suing ChatGPT for putting out its articles, right? So, but I think the impact area where it has is around education. So it has definitely changed the way we learn. Right. The other day, I was like, I mean, you can ask it very basic questions and it can really simplify. Like, for example, my son just sent me a ChatGPT thing which said, explain black skulls to a 5-year-old. and it came up with this beautiful, you can try that on ChatGPT, and it actually came up with like a very beautiful, simple way of understanding what that really is. So, you were talking about earlier, I like to keep things simple, right? How do you, yes, there are all these complicated buzzwords, but how do you simplify? And, those things like learning is really where, the AI or generative AI is kind of taken on. I think, the convergence of videos and images. We were talking about that. You were showing me that ad, the lovely car ad that you made. That I think is going to start impacting the media and the advertising agencies and all of those, right? But look, I mean, in this space, there are so many people who talk about AI, but I think wait and watch. It's still yet to come. I mean, it's not something that people need to start fearing. Oh, my jobs are going, my this is going, or that is going. It's still, at least for me, it's still a hype. It will start. It will start doing good things. It has started doing good things, right? Like even in healthcare, I can see like, it can really help in terms of like radiology, reading radiology reports and getting them right. So there are a lot of good applications of it. But yeah, I don't know if that covers.
Excellent. No, it does. And some of the points, the most important point that you make right in the beginning, adaptability. Uh, and there are three important pillars to an individual personality that creates a personality or construct of a personality is your IQ, which is intelligence quotient, EQ, which is emotional quotient, and now we have AQ, which is adaptability quotient. And intelligence comes with the ecosystem that you live in. What kind of school you studied, what kind of friends you had, the people around
Yeah.
you, the people in your family, and emotional quotient. As a father of a 5-year-old, I think kids have amazing levels of emotional quotient, and it's so natural, and they're so sincere, and you can learn so many things from kids at that point of
Yeah.
time when they. And I tell people kindness is such an important attribute to have, but very difficult to follow. And adaptability, like you mentioned, how do you adapt with the new changes, with the new learnings, the drift that is happening in the industry. Today, as you mentioned, AI is in its hype phase, which very well might be the possibility because everyone is talking and we really don't know how it transpires in the future. But then after AI, if there's some other technology that comes in, how can we adapt from AI into something else? Uh,
Absolutely.
so a very important aspect, Rukesh, that you mentioned over there. You also touched upon morality and ethics, and I was also wanting to ask you that this the other time is where do we look at morality? When let's say you're hiring someone who's really skilled, who's really talented, and he can get their job done. But there's also a danger that this person on his personality can dwell. So neuroticism is a personality trait, and that is seen in many creative people. So if this person is leaning towards neuroticism also, but is an excellent resource to have. So how do you ensure that this person with the knowledge that he has, doesn't get on the destructive side? And to give an example, I was giving the example the other day as well, is that Facebook engineers, highly talented, highly skilled individuals, they coded the platform to gather analytics, to gather data of the users.
Yeah.
But then there was a
Yeah.
company like Cambridge Analytica, for example, who probably took out a lot of data, and then we all know what happened with that. So how would you ensure that the talent that you hire are skilled, are excellent, are creative, but they don't use technology for the wrong purposes or create something which will, maybe society is a larger term, but even for the organization, even for their teams, even for people around us, and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. No, look, I think this has not been like it. I wish in the past we actually had morality quotient as well, right? So then the world would not be in the mess that we are in today, right? Like we wouldn't be destroying the world the way we are today, right? Um, this goes back to all the ideologies, like the religions, and like if you talk about like the communism, the capitalism, and the Nazism and all of it, right? So these are all different ideologies, and we are also attached, and this is mine, and therefore we kind of get into that. But if you get into, you can see today, like for example, at Google, right? They had this moral thing where people could oppose to say, hey, we are not going to do this programming because do no evil is our motto, right? So, you're talking about culture before, and I think this is the culture that needs to be created, whereby if somebody feels that something not right, or something that might morally harm the society. Now, how do you see, the question then becomes, how do we balance the capitalism to that morality, right? And are we willing to take a hit on the capitalist side of it in order to say we'll do morally the right thing? And I've done a lot of studies in history. I've like studied a lot of books going by all the way like 75,000 years to like 10,000 years to, like this last 2,000 years to these
Wow.
last 200 years, right? And my conclusion is that we as a race are really dumb. Human is a really dumb race, right? And we do everything to destroy ourselves. And you can see that, right? If you read history, you'll see that. And I cannot see how that would stop, because, yes, moral, you can have somebody who you want to stop when you hire. Like it's all about culture, and it has to come from leadership, right? And I think we need to be able to have it at a leadership level where we are able to say, okay, we will do the thing that is morally right, even though if it's going to impact our profits or shareholder value. And you can see certain companies bubbling up and doing some of these things, but it's not, I don't see how that would get mainstream. Like I'm very pessimistic of it. But of course, if you build the right culture, at least we should start talking about it. And I think for the new generation, this is going to become very, very more, very, very important, as we get into the AI world and all. Otherwise, like what would happen? What is the end game? The end game is like machines taking over because they've become so intelligent and them destroying all of us. And, like, Roshan, it makes me think about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? So, I feel that if we don't do this correctly, and the human race, we don't unite, right? We don't unite to do the right thing. If we find an alien race or some alien species come and attack us, we should that would be the time when we would unite, right? And I feel like if you look at the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, we would find species like dolphins and maybe jellyfishes running out and saying thank you for all the fishes.
No, it's absolutely amazing, and I think you took a very interesting and crucial angle on ethics and morality, and letting people know in the workforce that what is the right thing to do. And often that right thing is driven by capitalist motives. Bottom line matters, and that's I mean, if you look at books of organizational behavior, the first line is said the purpose of an organization is to make profits. And I think that definition needs to change in the
Absolutely.
21st
Yeah.
in the 21st century. That definition needs to change because in the last year of 2000 of the 20th century, we saw a lot of happening. We had the two major world wars, we had a Cold War, and that was a tipping point in world history. I have not read uh, as intensely as you going back to 75,000 years of history. But if you look at last 100 years, how the world has changed because of the two important wars, the depression that set in 1930, and that was a trigger point. for a lot of capitalist motives to come up, the definition of happiness changed. Happiness was no longer in being yourself and being with your loved ones, but happiness was about having the things that drove pleasure within you and gave you that feeling, that moment of euphoria. It didn't matter how long that euphoria lasts, but that was happiness. And that got inculcated into our media, into our mainline media, into our mainline advertising, into mainline promotions. And the world started believing that that happiness is. But
Yeah.
is that relevant in the 21st century as well? We saw communism failing. We saw fascism, thank for that, failing, and capitalism taking over. But does capitalism be relevant even in the 21st century, or should we look at an economy, or should we look at economies and markets which are more community driven, which focus on smaller groups and define their need that way, instead of saying that let's globalize everything and let's create a standard use case for everyone. So I think a lot of morality comes over there, a lot of thought has to be put into
Think
that.
local. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the world has to kind of, everyone is trying to understand right now. No one is absolutely sure of what is happening. No one can be absolutely sure of what is happening because of so many changes. We have got wars ongoing right now. And Rukesh, as you mentioned last time, which was also new to me, that you have got into leadership coaching as well as an interest. And the most important point that you mentioned over there, that with all this capitalism and profits, you mentioned about going away from transactional coaching. And you introduced a new term to me, which was at least new for me. You mentioned about deep coaching. So why don't you throw some insights into the context that we have spoken right now? How can you bring in the aspects of deep coaching? What does it involve, and how can it transform lives and people and countries?
See, it's so good. So this goes back to, like, human race being dumb, and all of us being dumb, that is, and the thing around morality and all, right? It's a question of spirituality, and I've gone down this journey of I went for Vipassana, which is like a 10-day deep meditation of 100 hours, so 10 hours per day, right? And you see different things, and you see the world very differently. You start to see world different. You start to experience world very differently. When you go deep, within, and you don't have interaction with the outside world at all, because there is this whole noble silence thing as well that you got to follow for 10 days. And um, you know from a coaching perspective, while I don't practice coaching per se, but as a leader, when I'm talking to talking to all the people around, that's where I get to practicing. But deep coaching is effectively more about, transaction coaching. We're talking more about, you know I have this particular objective. How do I achieve it, and how do I go about achieving it? And then you kind of put in steps and processes to get there. Deep coaching is kind of looking really deeper, and I don't think everybody is ready for it. Is about how do you, like, everything that you come across, like if you have an emotion and that emotion triggers something, and there is a reason behind it. And how do you go deep inside to look at it? And I believe that it's largely around values and belief system, and we all grow up with our values and belief system. One of the values or belief has kind of got triggered, and that kind of sets in an emotional journey, right? So it's about how do you go deep inside to then see whether it's enabling or limiting, and if it's limiting, how do you rewire it? Right.
Absolutely. So just staying on that thought, let's say in your space of being in the tech world, driving huge deployment teams, and you have worked with some of the most amazing companies and global companies all across the world, the names which I said, American Express, Lloyd's, uh, Geo, of course, in India, Edelweiss, these are no small companies, none of it is big business. So, in the tech world, how would you bring this philosophy with your team? So, let's say you have like major project deployments happening, and a lot of transformation has to happen around platform. So, how would you bring this insight into your teams when they are creating some platforms?
Yeah. So see, there are various leadership styles, right? And we know about them, right? Like in terms of autocratic, hierarchical, servant leadership style, etc. Right? Now, I find in India we need to change that culture a little bit because we really are top down, right? And um, being top down, it doesn't help. So for me, it is about for the group that I work with, for the teams that I build. When it comes down to the culture, for me, it's about being a servant leader. But it's all about how do I get the best out of the person who is there, and also drive that person towards the right morality. So, what is the passion, right? So, and drive towards a common goal, which 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 everybody can understand, right? So for example, if I give you an example, I was working at FSS, and one of the banks was kind of complaining, for example, that their payments are not going through, right? Now, they were not going through, of course, because of some software glitch or something that our teams were doing. And we had a team of about 20, 30 engineers who are supposed to be working on this payment system. Now, the problems that we are facing is, think of an Ola Uber driver going to a petrol pump, swiping the card, you debit the money from the account, but you don't credit the petrol pump, like say BP or HP or whatever. Now, if you don't credit the money in the petrol pump, the petrol guy is not going to give the money to the Ola driver. That means the Ola driver, the way they operate is a gig worker, right? They make money in the day, they go fill the fuel for next day, and whatever money remains is what brings food on the table, right? Now,
Right.
if you don't, if you're not, so if you take away the money, now the guy doesn't have money to fill fuel. So what happens for next day, right? So it's about. So my view is that, look, you're not working for myself. You're not working for the company. Think about the people you are impacting and how you're impacting, how your source code, how your system is impacting them, right? And and
Right.
and 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 that is the common goal that we try to build, and that in my experience works well. And that's how because you're doing it from heart, you're doing it from wanting to do it rather than doing it because you are getting money at the end of the day. Right.
Absolutely. Customer journeys and customer success matters so much in terms of transformation to platform. And you said that you want to be in a space where you're building platforms. And India is such a diverse market. It's just so hard. So many international brands, they come into the country and they said that, okay, we will adopt this strategy and this is how it will work. And we have seen many international organizations across different industries failing. General Motors, for example, when they try to bring uh, the kind of legacy they created in US, they were not able to replicate in a market like India. We are at the same time we are seeing models like Honda had the various models which were not used globally but were specifically designed for the Indian market, for example. And when you look at different industry, price is something which drives Indian consumerism and Indian markets to a very high extent. So, and again, then amidst this shift, there's a global shift of technology. Economies are changing, and we come to the point of VUCA. Where we talk about volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. For those who are new to this term, how and you are someone who operates a lot and you align yourself a lot with this with the VUCA world. Can you throw some light in terms of the VUCA world in the technology aspect, in the technology domain? And how do you think leaders and teams and even employees and engineers should have this aspect of VUCA within them to drive changes in organization, especially in the times we are in right now?
Yeah, so it's a very good point, and yeah, we spoke about adaptable caution, right? See, I believe agility is what you need from a tech perspective. So um, if you build, and this is what I learned at Geo actually, and Roshan, you are quite familiar with this, which is how much time, like, our leaders only cared about how much time it took from ideation to production, right? And I call this the time to value.
Yeah,
I
right,
call this time to value, right?
right.
And I actually codified this when I went into Edelweiss later. So how much time does it take from ideation to production, time to value? So what is my time to value? And I'm only interested in my time to value. And how do I continue to rejig the the people, process, and tools that enables me faster time to value, right? Now, gone are the days when you can do something, take 6 months, 9 months, or a year to actually get it out. But the world has changed in that time. I mean, you see like what happens in a month or even in a week. It's such a fast-paced world. And therefore, from a tech perspective, I believe you have to be tremendously agile, where you are able to prototype something, fast failure. So very experimental mindset, where you should be able to prototype multiple different things, put it out there in the market, and you build that ecosystem. I mean, we don't want to get into deep tech around it, but if you get into the deep tech around it, like building that platform mindset and building that engineering capabilities, full DevOps, DevSecOps, so that you've got pipeline where you can take things straight from ideation, quick prototyping, experimenting it with a smaller set of customers, and then either fast failing it or then building on it. And then you build very incrementally. So you never think something that is done. So, it's always continuous improvement. And you're always building fit for purpose. So at that point in time, what do you need? You don't need anything to scale to 100 million customers on day one. So stop building that. Build something that can work for, like, say, 1,000 customers, then 10,000 customers, then and if you get into your API stacks, you can look at like your APIs as a gateway into how you can continue to rejig your backend. And you can continue to build your backend depending on what the need is at that time, right? And you can rescale your API so that it can meet 100 million customers as well at some point in time, right? So it's about continuous improvement. It's about never done, and it's constantly questioning what you've done, high level of matrix, that data, whether it's working or not, and killing things that are not working, because you don't want to waste the time of the engineering teams on things that are not working, and focus on things that are working, and continue to build that very passionately, and we talked about that customer first. So this can't be like somebody's fancy idea. Let's do this, let's do that, right? It can be an idea. It can be a hypothesis, is what I call it. So it can be your
Right,
hypothesis. This is something that is good. Let's try it. But hypothesis has to be proven by matrix data.
all
And
right.
then you build on it or you cull it, right?
Yeah, we cannot have a populist approach. It has to be a pragmatic approach and fail fast and fail early. That is the mantra. And very important, Rukesh, and we have seen this. I don't want to name the people and the companies, but we have seen this at our workspaces, and I wouldn't blame the leaders also, because there's also a lot of investor pressure that you have to reach to 100 million customers, like you mentioned, in such a short span of time, because there's so much of investor pressure coming in. And that really throws creativity and ingenuity out of the window when that kind of things happen. And it's difficult even for leaders to focus and give the best product out and test it out for just 1,000 people. They're always thinking incremental, they're always thinking extrapolated numbers or have extrapolated numbers in the mind. And what you said, right, test your product very deeply with a short audience size, research it very clearly, have a very pragmatic approach into it. In your works experience, Mukesh, can you touch upon any example that you came on which, uh, let's say you build it, at a small level and it run fantastically well and you're able to scale it. Any such example that you can think of at your work, which you like to throw some light upon?
Yeah, so see, I think there were many, but the one where I got the people, process, and tools right and the culture right was at Edelweiss. And this was on back of the learnings from Geo, right?
Right,
So how do you build that pull culture instead of a push culture? So not top down, but you have a pull culture where team first. And I had some
right,
fantastic team there, who helped enable this and make it happen. Uh, but we started with something very small, with an ideation, and our idea was to build a lending platform, and we chose all the right tools, and also we were using low code platform there. So we started with something very small, just get one type of lending there, but also basic end-to-end journey, and then continue to build within those journey the complexity that is required. Like there's this whole concept of MVP, and how do you first get ideation, how do you get that first idea. So we first built, um, uh, I think it was SME loans. So loans for small business, etc., small to medium sized businesses. There were a lot of API integrations that you could do to enrich your data. But initially, you just go with bare minimum and do the bare minimum integration to get the data. You do your KYC check, you do your video KYC, and then you do your, once you've collected all the data, you're doing your underwriting and then getting into, making a decision whether you give a loan or not. So initially, it just started as a bare minimum, getting the application end to end. And then slowly, a lot of features getting built. And even today, I'm in touch with the CEOs there. They're continuously building more features, more products. And in India, you can do 20 type of loans. So, our idea was, as we built it, is how to build it as blocks so that you can quickly take these blocks and do any different type of loan that you want. So, later on, after we did the SME loans, we went with home loans, and build the home loan out. I don't believe they've done the personal loan. It was in the plans to actually get the personal loan and other types of loans. But that's one way in which you kind of get it. Now, there we did not scale it out, right? Scaling just did not happen at that point. But the platform was there, the low-code platform, the thing that we'd chosen, which was OutSystems. It auto-scaled. You just had to add more hardware and all. So that wasn't a problem per se.
I think it's truly satisfying as a leader to know when you build a legacy, as you mentioned, at Edelweiss, and you build this platform which uh, is being used constantly, and it's been used for different product lines. It's been used to create new journeys. It's been used to penetrate more markets. I think that feeling must be extremely satisfying for you, and I can see that when you explain about that to all of us. At the same time, we touch upon we let's look at the other aspect of stress, and balancing stress life. And there's so much talk of work-life balance. Let me ask you, how do you manage when there's this constant need and push that keeps coming from leadership, from investors, and you need to manage such huge deployment teams, huge set of engineers. How do you personally manage this stress, and how you just shrug it off?
Look, you have to have that ability. I guess it goes naturally for me because I'm a Gemini, and the twin self kind of helps me, I'm guessing. But I'm a voracious reader. I'm voraciously into anything and everything. I want to always learn, right? So for me, um, like getting into things is very easy. Like, disconnecting from one and getting into something else is very easy. But look, I mean, of course, the work stress and all, if I remember, some of the times at Geo and, Edelweiss FSS, I think Australia was a little bit easier because you did disconnect and then reconnected. But these times, look, I love to just put on my sneakers and go out for a run, right? And I like to go to the gym. This is where, like, I do boxing. Like, it's a boxing class, so it's good fun to just hit a bag. So those are the things I do. But look, what I found as I started, so I started running, I started cycling. Initially it was mind over matter, and you kind of get tired and all. But then you're doing long distance running, so you're now doing 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, right? And cycling, I started was doing 30, 40 kilometers, and now I do like something like 200 kilometers, 100 to 2 kilometers, 100, 200 kilometers on the weekends. Every now and then I go on an expedition. So I did Manali to Leh sometime in August, I think, this year. So these are the things that help me disconnect, right? But what I find is, when you are doing these activity and you go through so much pain that you are so much in terms of knowing yourself, that when it comes to real life and when real life problems occur, it just seems so insignificant. It just seems so small because you tested the limits of yourself, right? Lately, I've been doing a lot of treks as well. So I've been going on 7-day trek, living out of a backpack in a tent, right? And that also teaches that, hey, I mean, it teaches minimalism, right? It's like, do I really need so much? When I can just be on the mountain with with a backpack. So those are some of the things I do. I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I follow Liverpool like crazy. I follow a lot of tactics in soccer. How they play, what they play. Then reading and all is voracious reader, right? Like, I mean, it's not just books, but it's a lot of newsletters, and there are a lot of some really good newsletters. And if you've got tech folks, like Pragmatic Engineer, for example, Byte Go. See, I like to learn how others are building their tech tools, how others are building their technology, and InfoQ. So some of these, they actually tell you how, say, for example, Discord was built, or how LinkedIn was built, or how Facebook is built, or how some of the Google Maps is built, for example. So there are a lot of engineers or architects who come and talk about how these are built, and they write some beautiful articles and stuff. It helps in terms of how others are doing it, and that's how you kind of learn from that, right? Their leadership related, self-development related newsletters, etc. That just that's how I kind of disconnect, and it just like helps me disconnect from whatever I need to.
I think it's amazing. It's just not one or two things. There's a whole plethora of things that you're doing. And it's amazing the way you're able to balance that, because the way you mentioned 100 or 200 kilometers, it's like sounds like a joke. And I'm sure the comparison, when you draw it to work stress, I think it kind of balances off when you know that, hey, I do 200 kilometers, and that's the real challenge, physically, mentally, which stretches my resistance, stretches my resilience on many aspects, so to say, and that really eases out you at work. And I just wanted to share this picture with everyone, of the recent walk
Very
uh,
good.
which you have done. I hope the screen is visible to all. And you did this 55-kilometer walk for Ummeed, which is, and this, apart from the health benefits and the de-stressing benefits, there's also a social cause, a charitable cause that you are linked with, and it is with your wife, again, who is a leadership coach, and you do these 55-kilometer walk. So this is a 55-kilometer walk which Rukesh does every year, is it?
Well, my wife has done 5 of these. I've done 2. Last year I didn't finish. Last year I did 33 kilometers and my knee was hurting like mad. I find walking is incredibly hard compared to running or cycling. But yeah, this was last weekend. So, there's a foundation, Umeed Foundation. It's a foundation that looks after kids with development disability. And they've been doing some fantastic work across the country. There are 1 in 8 kids who have got some development difficulties, right? And
Right.
these are differently abled kids. So what the foundation does is it helps the parents. It
Mhm.
helps the kids, of course, first, whatever needs of the kids are, but it also helps the parent on how to deal with a child with development difficulty. Because, parents get a lot of stressed because when they're dealing with kids, and, helping the parents in itself. And of course, they teach, in regional areas and others, so they use a lot of
Mhm.
this money for that. And, we had a target, and I think, I'm not sure where we are, but, yeah, it's a good cause. And, we really support it with me and my wife. So it was incredible. So the picture that you see with the bottle and all, like you trying to not, like you get so tired by the end. I started at 5 in the morning, finished at 8 in the evening. But it was good. It was good fun.
I think it's wonderful when you're in that position to give something back to the society for these causes. I'm also associated with some of these NGOs and trying to help people around. I have just posted the link for people in case anyone is interested to donate for the cause that Rukesh just mentioned. Is
So I
more than
appreciate, absolutely love it.
yeah,
I
no, I mean,
appreciate it.
in whatever capacity, we're not saying that this is the amount or that is the amount. I think every capacity, it's going for a great cause. I think we can definitely look into it. And the walk, the walk is amazing. So, can people join you, or is it like a closed group community? How is it? If let's
No,
say
absolutely. Anybody can join. Anybody can join. What Umid tries to do is, oh yeah, this is
a beautiful
yeah.
picture. So I'm just trying to market the thing over here. So when you go walk on these beaches. I think this is when you reach 46 kilometers on the southern end of Goa. So it's really scenic and you have this twilight. So yeah, Rukesh, please continue.
Yeah, so Goa South Beach, it's like a 22-kilometer stretch. So you start in the middle and then you go all the way to the north, come back to that point, and by lunchtime you've done about 33 kilometers. And then you have lunch, you break because it's very hot. There's no shade on the beach, as you know. Um, and then after lunch you kind of start towards the south end. So this picture that you see is of the south end, where the river is coming on the right left hand side, and it's the open sea, so all the fishing boat, it's kind of dusk, so you see a lot of fishing boats trying to catch fishes near the where the fresh water meets the seawater, right? But yeah, it's beautiful. It's like it's just walking there, it's testing, I mean, while it's absolutely beautiful, it can become really serene because there's this one stretch of 5 kilometers where I just closed my eyes and I was walking, and I could hear like birds and I could hear these waves and all. Otherwise, it is amazing. It's amazing feeling. Worth trying. And people who want to join, yeah, absolutely get in touch, either with myself or yourself, and we can make sure that next year you're invited. Of course, the catch is you got to raise some.
You need to train. You need to train hard. It's not easy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got to train. But look, it's not a competition. It's not a
Yeah,
competition. So
yeah,
it's not like you need to finish 25. Some people do 5 kilometers, some do 10, some do
right.
33. So yeah.
Yeah, and today we had the Tata Marathon also, where so many of
Oh
them in the
yeah,
corporate world have been
absolutely.
participating. That's great, and especially on the cause, sticking on the cause that you are doing. And I see you being involved. I read your LinkedIn post. I see you being involved in trying to help society and trying to help those people who are not able to. And sometimes just one push, you just never know where that one push will help someone, where it would catapult someone's life. Like we say, some of history's largest events in history have happened through very small changes, very small triggers. And you just don't know that one donation or just doing this one thing, it helps whom. And that brings me to the next question, Rukesh. With the insurgence of technology, with access to this technology or certain facilities by certain communities. The other aspect is we also speak about climate change and the technologies that are rising in terms of climate change. But those technologies are largely accessible to people, the privileged, right, who belong to developed countries. So I would say a developed nation today, they have great access to counter challenges like climate, counter challenges of AI. But that would not be the case in the underdeveloped or countries like in Africa or maybe certain parts of Asia or South America. And that is creating a greater divide in the society. And I was just reading that somewhere in 1950, the divide was very less, but as time is going on, the divide is just getting just just increasing. So do you think the future will create a larger divide with various economic classes of society? Especially with health care, climate change solutions? Or do you think technology has the capacity to bridge that gap and to create benefits for people who would otherwise would not have access to a lot of infrastructure? What is your thought on
Um, Look, as a whole, I'm supremely optimistic. But as a whole, after doing a lot of reading on the history and all, I'm I'm quite pessimistic on human race being dumb. Right. So, um, look, the first MOOC, the online course that I did was, I think it was game theory around 2008-ish, 2008, 9 or something like that, right? At that time, there were 130,000 students doing the same course on Coursera, right? Now, and we were in peer groups, and there were people from all over the world, and literally all over the world. You can name any country and you could find a person from that country. So I think the technology has absolutely made it accessible to know anything and everything for anybody and everyone, right? So from that perspective, yes, there is an opportunity for anybody to um, come out, learn, unlearn, relearn. We talked about the skills. I don't want to see people talk about how many years of experience they have, but how much skill do they have? What skill do they have? What skill can you bring to the table, right? And continue to learn these skills. And that's what gets you out of that cycle. But when I talk about human and human race, I cannot see, and in history, we haven't come out of the exploitation and the colonialism. And therefore, this is the pessimistic side to me in this particular area. I cannot see why there would not be any classes. Unless we can reject capitalism, for example, into something that we talked about earlier, into morality, I cannot see. But I believe today the opportunity for anybody to do anything and everything is there, because you can
Right.
Google it, you can learn it on YouTube, you can learn it on MOOC. So anything you want to learn, you don't necessarily need to be in a college to
Right.
be able to learn it, right?
Right.
And with the advent of our chat GPT, my goodness, I mean, you ask it questions, you ask it simplifying things. It's just beautiful and wonderful if you want to learn something from it. And, you can ask something and, like you would have tried it, like when you're creating presentation or you ask it one question, it can give you like a whole, like it doesn't give very accurate answer. It's like dumb answers, but at least it gives you a good framework on which you can start building.
Right.
So that's one. I think that will remain. I feel and Roshan, I don't know whether we've talked about it, but I feel the area where artificial intelligence can start helping is a virtual assistant, and if it can give me some kind of neural link with infinite access to the cloud,
Hmm.
right? And if everybody has that opportunity, where I'm all the time connected and I'm all the time knowing anything and everything, I don't know where and how, like, then everything gets nullified, right? Then there is no, uh,
Right. There's
you know,
no differentiator.
huh,
Where is the human skill? Where is the humanness in the human?
yeah. And I look, it's scary, but I think we are getting there.
Yeah, yeah. Scarier times, interesting times, exciting times. And my
Yeah.
last question, before I ask you to leave a message for the group, and then we'll see if someone wants to raise a question, is in India, of course, you moved into India in 2015. How do you see India's growth story, and what do you think the youth of today, what should we focus on to drive that Indian growth story?
Look, I mean, India is fantastic, and I think it's beautiful. I'm very bullish on it, and like the stuff that we've got absolutely right is the public goods infrastructure.
All right,
Um, you can look at Aadhaar and the whole eKYC. Now you can open
all right,
accounts within seconds, right? Like
absolutely,
it's just beautiful. Of course, I'm still very annoyed by how we have created user experiences where we not make it very easy for customers to be able to do that, right? But that's a separate matter. But it's about user experience, right? Like creating all the enabling technologies are there, right? You can look at Aadhaar, you can look at UPI. Like we've totally skipped. So we are we as a country are always skipping, right? So we skipped the manufacturing and we went straight into services with our Infosys and TCSs and all of that, right? Of course, now we want to bring back manufacturing because it makes sense. We skipped the whole cards and we went straight to UPI, right? And it's everywhere. Like, I mean, it's just beautifully, it's working beautifully across the country, right? So, um, like the healthcare is now changing. We're trying to build the whole healthcare stack. The ONDC, which is the whole e-commerce stack, is kind of coming live now. That needs to be pushed through. The whole account aggregator part,
right,
is kind of coming out. So, look, I think, if you look at the headwind and the tailwind is absolutely there, and I can see the government doing absolutely all the right things to push things, right? I hope it doesn't get disrupted out, the whole
yeah,
momentum and all, but absolutely bullish. And we're doing, like, we got it right in terms of the public goods infrastructure. It's
great,
just about now figuring out how to make money off it and all. And this is not like capitalism that we are talking about. This is
right,
like
right.
actual public goods.
Right, a bit of socialism also, the good part of socialism that also gets inculcated into that. That is important. And the government is partnering, I think, with the best companies. And we have uh, excellent homegrown stories, like TCS, Infosys, L&T, to kind of support that capability, build that capability. In the finance sector, I think we have banks. The RBI is a very respected body, very, I think, excellent policies. I've been in the banking sector all throughout, and I seen them as a regulator, which is a very strong regulator globally, with their policies and stuff. So I think it's all augmenting well for the country. And even I share that sentiment of yours that I am also bullish on the India growth story. We just have to wait and watch that
Yeah.
it doesn't it goes that way and it does not take the China route. Because China's economy is currently on the downward trend. So we just hope that we kind of pass that inflection point and don't cave in. So thank you, Rukesh. That's 1 p.m. and it's been great having you. It's not easy to get uh, someone on a Sunday. I think thank you so much for your time. Any message for we have students over here who are logged in, a lot of guys from the corporate as well. Any any message that you would want to pass before signing off? And maybe we'll just take one or two questions from the group as see on the chat. Yeah, but a message from you for students.
Look, I would say, adopt this mantra of learn, unlearn, relearn. Right?
Right.
Never, like, you can do certifications and all of that, but don't, don't look at it from a certification, from a tick mark perspective. Look at it from how I can apply this. Right? Learn to apply things that you learn is very important skill. And look, lately I'm becoming very passionate, as my kids are growing as well, is start saving money. Save some percentage of money. And I think you and I spoke about that, right?
Yeah,
Save some
yeah.
percentage of money. Understand the power of compounding, because you can talk about AI jobs and all of that, and if you kind of buy into that story, then you need to build some capability where the money is working for you and you're not working for money, so that you get that independence whenever something in future doesn't work right for you. So I think just build on that, and over the years it can build a sizable buffer. So keep these two things in mind. I think very simple. Keep it
Yes.
simple.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can say capitalism and all, but in the end, some money is important. We just need to figure out how much. And I think that's a topic for a discussion at some other point of time. There's one question from the group, Rukesh, we can just answer it. Is there from Arun, who says, can India make an impact in AI related innovations, and which industry or segment you think India can set the benchmark?
Um, Look, at, I would really like to see now. I mean, this is a public forum, but I'd like to see less of IT services. I'd like to see more of deep engineering. I'd like to see us getting into a lot of core innovations and research and development, right? And this is where the youngsters need to start thinking. How can you go deep into it? How can you go into the deep research? And this is where, see, it's very easy to today take some open source large language model, build on it, give it something, and train it for something, and you get some output. But that any 12-year-old, any
Right.
kid can do that today, right? It enables. There's so many tools out there, and if you read about it, there are so many tools that lets you do that. But get into deep research. I think this is where we can start making a difference as a country. And this can happen in all industries and all segments. Some are much easier because they're more mature, like telco and banking, BFSI, because they're like tech businesses rather than actually any other businesses. Some are a little bit immature, but I believe you can do it across any industry and any segments.
Absolutely. I think, like you, and this goes back to the first point you made, there's the AI hype. Let's not get distracted by the hype and let's focus on things that we can build, things that we can innovate. And a lot of that lies outside the world and dominions of AI and technology. And we need to look at the entire picture, not just the limited picture, going back to the cliche of look at the big picture. So, Rukesh, are you okay to take one last question?
Absolutely, go on. I've got time. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have one question from Hitesh, and I think you also mentioned about Neuralink, where your brain is connected to a larger, the global library. And Hitesh asks how this future tech like AI, Neuralink, and all impact on human mental health.
So mental health is something we've just created. Like, Hitesh, this is a very, very, like, if you read about history, so if you go from 75,000 years to about 10,000 years, we were all running around in the forest, happy chappy, spending about 3 hours a day to find some food, and rest of the time we are like giggling away. Um, Agriculture revolution, from 10,000 years ago, is where we started messing around with our mental health, because we started staying in a community and becoming farmers. And then some rich king would come in and say, hey, I need to take all your grains, and now you're stressed. Is it going to rain tomorrow? How much am I going to grow? How much am I going to save? And this is where I think our mental health problems began about 10,000 years ago. And we haven't been easy on ourselves. We have actually made it harder. The whole science and tech revolution in the last 200 years or 100 years have actually increased that mental health. Is Neuralink and AI going to make us happy? Look, there is a view, and I don't know if you've seen that. There's a very good talk or video that I've seen, where you can have a bot. It knows when you wake up what all your health parameters are, because it's getting it from those smart devices, right? And it can then, and this is what I was talking about, the virtual assistant. Like, how can virtual assistant see? Today I'm so stressed because I've got so many WhatsApp messages, I get so many emails, I get so many everything, right? And I'm all the time stressed trying to keep up with everything. Now, how can a virtual assistant start helping me with these things? Now, if I get my health parameters, can it sort out my food? Can it order my food? Can it do my bill payments? Can it, like, and this is where the robotics and AI will kind of come into play first, I believe, before Neuralinks, because Neuralinks is hard. How are you going to wire the brain with the chip? But I believe once you do that, of course, you've got infinite computing power. But all of this is going to be stressful. I don't think it's going to be easy. But if you start thinking in terms of virtual assistant, and if you start changing that, I believe it can start helping around the mental health, because it's trying to de-stress you. It's trying to keep you, because your bot is understanding your emotions, and helping you resolve those emotions. Because today there are many bots where you can actually talk to it, and it can, like, use for therapy and that kind of thing, right? But yeah, it's a good question.
Thanks so much, Rukesh. Ishti has asked a question that will AI eat human jobs as the time passes? I think Rukesh has answered that even earlier, that Rukesh sees this as a hype. Of course, some bit of it will get impacted, but adaptability, you need to keep adapting to newer things. You cannot be fixed onto something and say, okay, I have got a degree and I will not learn any further. I think that will be the end of human jobs more than anything else. It will be our own,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
will be our own intent rather than someone else or something else taking over us. All right, Rupesh.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, if you think about in terms of, there are many problems to solve, right? So if you look around, there are so many problems to solve. Now it's up to you of how you want to spend your time, in what problem you want to solve. Right?
Absolutely.
And if you look at it from that space, then yes, okay, one type of job may go away, but the number of problems are still plenty, for if you can reapply, learn, unlearn, relearn,
Yes.
right, and solve a different problem. You'll always be in the one.
Yeah, for example, we at Antimbulo Media and Consulting, when we do trainings and workshops, there are some clients who say that, are you using AI facilities? Can you give us a platform? And my answer to them is that our business is to get away from the platform, is to get into humans, have human connections, sit down with people with a pen and paper. Some would say even pen and paper is a technology, but okay, that's fine. But at least you're off the screen. And my idea is to deliver or create transformation by people reflecting within themselves, rather than reading about case studies or rather than reading about what the AI world is doing, getting into the human aspects of it. So I think
Yeah.
that's what you touched upon, Rukesh. Rukesh, thank you so much for your time once again. It's been great to have you over here. And maybe we'll look forward to you for a different topic, something like personal finance in the future as well. But I'm sure everyone has gained so much. And thank you so much for everyone to join in. And thanks again, Rukesh.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.